At the very minimum, this week has been a bit challenging, not knowing if this thing was ever going to show signs of healing, especially with what I did.
What I did was treat my thin titanium plate like rebar. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis the Cycling Greek. I was a little too active a week after the surgery, and that caused a couple of my screws on the proximal side of the brake to start coming out. A couple of days later, I went to the ortho because I felt something was off, and this is the picture that they took. I first met with the PA, the physician's assistant, and he said, "It's up to the doctor, but we may have to go back in and put a plate underneath it to secure it." When the doctor came in, he said, "Even though it looks like you're starting to grow a second head because that titanium is starting to push up on my skin and forming a real big bump, the brake is still connected nicely, so that's what you want. So we're going to watch this for a couple weeks. You're going to come in next week, we're going to take some pictures, and then the week after, and by then the callus should be formed, and at that point we'll go back in and take out the screws and plate." When I went in the next week for my intermediary checkup, we found that the callus had formed. What you're looking at here is a slightly different angle than the previous x-ray you had just seen. It's making things look much better than what they actually are. There still is healing to happen. However, there's been significant healing that's already occurred, so much so that he said, get rid of the sling, work on full range of motion, no push-ups or the like, just full range of motion. And as long as you don't fall, you're free to ride on the road. This turned out a lot better than I thought it would. And there are two reasons. One, I stopped doing stupid stuff. And two, I stuck to my process. What's my process? It's all in my previous video, and there's a link below. My next appointment is in 2 weeks, and as I stick to my process, things should be even better. Even though I get to ride on the road, these next 2 weeks are going to be solo, and they're going to be near home. Time to ride.
As it turns out, it's all going in a good direction. Now you notice, I'm in my kit. Doctor said, you can ride on the road, just don't fall down. So this is my first ride, and the key is, don't fall down.
That initial takeoff and those first few pedal strokes played in my mind a bit. I quickly found that there were things I had to be aware of that ordinarily I wouldn't give a second thought to. For example, bumps. Yeah, that one hurt. And standing, like I did coming out of this corner. That put pressure on my shoulder. I didn't do that again either. And then when the initial fear of falling went away, somebody let Fast Eddie out. Fucker.
Okay, that felt pretty cool. A few accelerations in the small ring, a few accelerations in the big ring. I'm actually pretty tired right now. Let's go in and I'm going to show you some things.
A few videos ago, I had a video on muscle memory, and that's going to be real important right now. So if you look at me, my broken collarbone is on this side. You'll notice that my right shoulder is much more developed than my left shoulder. In fact, the same thing with the trapezius, with some of the neck muscles here, and I'm sure with all the back muscles back there. With the broken plate, so the plate was not broken, it's bent and some of the screws are partially out, fortunately. So if you want to see something freaky, take a look at this. It's like I'm growing another head here. So the plate here on the proximal side, screws have come up a little bit, and so now that thing is just starting to pop out. So obviously they don't want it to go through the skin. Fortunately, with the good diet that I have, it's keeping the integrity a lot more than if I wasn't having a good diet. So things are good so far. So what's going to happen is that I went for you saw where I went for my doctor's appointments, where they said I can start riding and just don't crash. So I'm just keeping it solo for a couple weeks. And in a couple more weeks, I'm going to go again and I'm going to see how much more is filled in. It should be filled in a lot more. And then after that, they'll take out that plate and screws. Got to remember, you got to get a good process and trust it. I was trusting the process, but I was still getting nervous, and that's okay. I just have to make sure that I don't overdo things now and screw things up in another way. So remember, trust the process, and also comment, like, subscribe, The Cycling Greek.